do this now? I didn't know that we said. I don't know.
You don't know. Speaker, we revert to government business.
Honourable Leader, government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In these estimates of revenue and expenditure, we have actually reached 38 hours out of the 32 minutes out of the 40 hours allocated. I therefore beg to move that Standing Order 66-1, which provides for a maximum of 40 hours being allocated for the examination of the estimates in Standing Finance Committee, be suspended at this stage, and therefore I beg to move that this standing order be suspended.
The question is that Standing Order 66, subsection 1, be suspended for the remainder of the sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Standing Order 66, subsection 1 is hereby suspended. We revert to Standing Finance Committee.
This Honourable House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment.
Honourable Member for St. John.
Chair, I seek your permission to take leave and to ask my team to join me in the Well of Parliament.
Permission so granted.
Mr. Chairman, Head 51, Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment, in the amount of $56,660,305.
Honourable Member for St. John.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, today I'm pleased to be here with my small team, Sports and Community Empowerment, to deal with the matters relating to still maybe our young people and community.
Honourable Member permit me to give the instructions to your team. You are already familiar with those instructions, but I will repeat for your benefit and the benefit of members of the House. Honourable Minister, you have 10 minutes to give an overview of the strategic goals of your ministry. The members of your team can participate in this debate under your instruction with regards to questions that are posed. Each member is asked that before they answer the question, you will have to give your name and the position within the ministry for the records of this House. Honorable members of the House will be familiar with the process in that you have one question initially, and in your response to that question, you posing that question, you will have the opportunity thereafter to pose three supplementary questions related to the original question that was posed. You have 3 minutes, honorable members, to respond to the question. The honorable minister would have 5 minutes to respond to any question that was posed, or the opportunity to direct that question to any member of his team, and that member of the team has 3 minutes to answer the question. Honorable member, you would proceed.
Thank you, Chair. First, Chair, I must say thank you to my constituents in St. John for sending me back to work. In relation to the task at hand, I will speak first about community development. And community development, as in the other sections of the ministry, is using a proactive approach in terms of how we reach individuals in the communities. We have started a process called the Center Management Committee, that provides an opportunity now for communities to own, so to speak, the community centers in relation to programming at those particular locations. Only yesterday, I believe I was or Wednesday, at a function at the Glebe where a mixology program was put in place to benefit individuals from within the environs of the Glebe. And we're continuing to do work in terms of projects to impact at community level. The Community Independent Secretariat, another section of my ministry that is a year-round activity where we empower, in the first instance, 22 youngsters to be ambassadors for their parish. And I think that you have an idea of that because of the success that is coming from your constituency. And we continue to grow the program. We continue to impact at a level that I think I am satisfied. And again, like the other programs within the ministry, we try to be proactive in terms of coming with new ideas to make that particular program relevant. The third section of the ministry is sports. And the sports project on Island is one that I would say is alive and well. We have embarked on a number of ambitious projects in terms of the infrastructure to ensure that our athletes have what I would say the best possible chance to do podium at the regional and international level. We have done work in relation to permit me, Chair, to go back and maybe ask myself some questions. And I look particularly at the 2022 Manifesto of Government and look at what was embedded in the manifesto as it relates to the sports project on Island. Complete work started on the national sports policy, a box that we can tick because that is already in place. Complete the much desired redevelopment of the Barbados National Stadium, And only this morning I saw an article highlighting the fact that work is at a serious stage in relation to that. We had the mini stadia project, developed 15 mini stadia across the island, work already completed. Prioritize the further development of the Wildy as a multidisciplinary sporting center in Barbados. Box tick, we have now a volleyball facility, 400 track almost completed, multipurpose facility for badminton and squash already in place. So, Chair, the sports project is alive and well. Currently, we have at least 6 major infrastructure projects that are happening. We continue to do work as it relates to the community through the Community Coaches Program that seeks to provide coaches with an opportunity to be able to go back and give back to communities. Recently, we would have started again the beach football tournament that saw in excess of 350 individuals participating in that particular discipline. And note that this was going parallel to the Prime Minister's Cup. So I'm satisfied at this point that government is doing what it is that we are tasked with doing. I would say to you that at least $50 million in infrastructural projects and other areas in sports is currently on the table. And I dare anyone to say that this government is making sports at sports. With those few words, I beg that Head 51 stand par.
The question is that Head 51 stand par. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Honorable member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Minister and your team. I'm going to ask questions as relates to fields and development of sporting facilities and fields around Barbados. And I'm going to come to the one, of course, I have great interest in St. Matthias. And I want to thank you for starting the Pavilion Stroke Resource Center, but obviously the hard court and the rest of the field also has to be developed. So I would want you to discuss that with us. But before we do that, I happen to be in the parish of St. Lucie, and I saw a field, I think it's by the Ignatius Bayer School, and I noted that it didn't have any lights on it at all. And I was wondering, your lighting program, are there any plans at all to do the lighting of the field by Ignatius Bayer School?
Thank you, Honorable Member, for that question. We would have embarked on what I think is a very aggressive lighting program across the island. In most cases, what we're hoping to do is to ensure that all of the fields that are owned by the state are the ones that we put lights on first. And I think that we are doing a pretty good job of ensuring. We would have had to retrofit a number of locations. When I came to the ministry, there were a number of poles that were rotten and we had to replace them. I think that particular process is now completed, but I will ask Mr. Matthias to give you a more detailed answer in relation to the question that you're asking.
Good morning. Nicholas Matthias, Senior Superintendent of Works, National Sports Council. To answer your question, sir, the field and hard court specifically at St. Matthias, we were hoping to use some of the excavated material from the resource center to build up the field that we were going to put in place for the school and the surrounding district. but a lot of that material came out as that rocky, broken material. So we know we have to import material for that, and the hardcore is as part of the plans to come along for that facility as well. So as you correctly said, we have broken ground and we're in the process of building out for the pavilion resource center itself, and we'll move on to the hard court with the car park, and the field we'll leave for last because that sort of landscaping will come under the landscaping aspect of it. For Ignatius Bayer, that was actually part of the original lighting program. The program itself was started, and about 7 fields did not make it into the program because of the expense based on the monies that we were given. But Ignatius Bayer is part of that program, and we are looking to continue it along with the other 7 that we would not have finished as part of the original program. So I can say yes, Ignatius Bayer, we have a good working relationship with the club and the school there, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing if we can get that done within this financial year.
Thank you, Ms. Matthias. Well, of course, it begs the question, now what are the other 7? So please enlighten us, because there are many of my colleagues, who may not have a chance to ask a question at this time, but would be very keen to know what the other 7 are. Please, thank you.
Yes, please, just give me a minute pulling that information for you now.
While he's checking, Minister, what I would say is that there is a program in place that we will systematically get to all of those fields. There's some fields that are not ours. For example, the YMCA, this was earmarked as a dedicated football field, but we know that we need to put lights on that particular location. So there is a systematic way that we're going about ensuring that all of the fields are lit, because it is one of the ways that we're going to grow the sports by having communities involved in the process. So if the pyramid at the bottom of sports is broad, then I think those diamonds in the rough will have an opportunity to rise to the top. Mr. Matthias?
Yes, please. So the 7 that are left for the original lighting project: Ignatius Bayer, St. Lucie; Crab Hill, St. Lucie; YMPC, Beckles Road, St. Michael; Lodge School, St. John; Queen's Park, St. Michael; Prout, St. Thomas; and Gemswick, St. Philip. Those are the 7 that are left of part of the original lighting project.
But I didn't hear the St. Matthias, so that will get nonetheless, of course.
We definitely will look into that, sir.
Okay. And then, of course, the final question then, Minister, has to do with the bleachers. Because I know you also had a bleachers project, and of course I want to be sure that we're going to get bleachers at St. Matthias, but how far are you with the bleachers, and where are you able to go next to be able to complete the bleachers for the rest of Barbados?
We have started the process of now importing, I think, some permanent bleachers that Mr. Matthias will also speak to. But we have in place the mobile ones that can move from location to location, and that has been working well in terms of providing communities and clubs with an opportunity to have additional seating when there's a particular tournament on. But the permanent ones, I know the pads were down in several locations, but I will allow Mr. Matthias to expand as far as that is concerned.
So the first set of bleachers, the first 50, which are the smaller portable ones, all of them are on island. We are using them currently. The second set, 17 of the bigger bleachers seating 180 persons per set are on island. We are just waiting for the contractor that supplied it to us to send their dates for the supervision of installation. We have started the prep work in terms of the bases at all of the locations that are necessary for them. And essentially those locations are the mini stadium locations. And that work has been started. Actually, more or less all the bases are completed. We're just waiting on the final dates with the supervisor of the contractor that made them to come down so that they could supervise us installing here in England. But they are here, and we have them in our possession.
Thank you very much, Minister, and your team. Obviously, we've been asking about this facility at St. Matthias now every year in estimates for about 3 years now. So obviously we're excited that it has started and looking forward to the completion within the next, what you said, 2 months? And I won't ask you to answer that question now because I think I'm putting you a little bit under the pressure. So, Chairman, I yield back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you, Chair, and a warm good morning to the Ministry. I want to congratulate you on the progress that you've made as a ministry in a number of areas. However, we know that there are a number that are still awaiting fulfillment. And I can say on behalf of the people of St. James South, there are some things that we are eagerly awaiting. Where we are as a country, we know that we're challenged in terms of ensuring that our youth are provided with proper outlets for their energy, proper outlets for their interests, and ensuring that they're doing positive things. And this is all part of keeping the fabric of our society whole. And the issue of access to sports and sporting facilities is very important. My question has to do with the state of play in relation to, for example, the lights that we need to have on the grounds. Our challenge in St. James South is that they need some realignment because you really cannot see to do night programs in the middle of the field. You really can't see the ball. The other issue that we have is access to the exercise equipment. We haven't had that as yet. And we have a couple of facilities that require access to changing rooms. But the biggest need, our biggest need, is a community center. In our area, there is no community center where activities can take place. And we have been requesting from the ministry some assistance to be able to renovate a building to allow us to be able to provide the community, which between St. James South and St. James Central represents some 3,000 to 4,000 people in need of that community center. So I just want to get from the ministry, what are the plans to deal with these issues in St. James South? And when can we anticipate a start to the implementation of those plans for the people? As you know, we have some troubled areas, and therefore a fast track on this is really critical for helping us to lay a hold of our communities and focusing the powerful energy of our young people in a positive direction. So I would appreciate, and I know the people of St. James South would appreciate to hear it from you, as opposed to me promising when I don't have the power to actually implement. But with your power, I know that it will make a difference for them hearing it.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. Yes, first of all, let me deal with the focusing of the lights. From time to time, the lights on those poles tend to shift, and ever so often we need to go back at night to do some refocusing of the lights in relation to the center of the fields. And we would have started the process of doing that. As long as we are aware that there's an issue with the lights, we tend to go in and fix that. I think I'm familiar with the location that you're talking about in Husbands. I believe that you need facilities for changing. And we, this financial year, will pay a visit to the location and see how best that we can facilitate your requests in terms of having washroom facilities, changing facilities at that location. As it relates to the community center, I remember doing a site visit with you. So I would allow my officers, Mr. Matthias first, to speak on the matter of the lights, and then the Chief Community Development Officer, Mr. Hollingsworth, to deal with the community center issue for you.
Good morning again, Nicholas Matthias, National Sports Council. In terms of the lighting focus, I believe you probably may be referencing to Haynesville, Pastor. If I do, what happens there is that is both a cricket and a football, Pastor. Football actually asks for a different lighting setup to cricket. So what happens, we adjust the lights for football, and then cricket season, if they have a late and night match, we have to readjust for them. What we are going to do as well, we have to do some electrical upgrades to the pavilion so that we can get some extra lights on the pole, so that we can get that focus, so we don't have to be having that adjustment from one sport to the next. Also at the Desmond Haynes ground, that has some of the older lights, and as you would have heard the minister said, we have ordered new lights, and they are earmarked to get that upgrade as well. Pardon? No, this financial year you get them, because the lights are due in Barbados by the end of this month, and in the new financial year, that upgrade at Desmond Haynes will come. In terms of access to changing rooms, maybe you can let me know which facility specific. I think the minister may know. This is the Oxnard Tower Court, I believe you're talking about. So we'll look into that because this is, I've heard this question come up before, but we definitely look into that, and outside of this forum, I will get back to you and let you know how the plans for that will be brought to fruition.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Hollingsworth. I'm the Chief Community Development Officer, Community Development Department. The Community Development Department is very much aware of the need for community center facilities within the constituency of St. James South. I just happen to live in the constituency. And, we recognize that not only St. James South, but also St. James Central is in need of a similar facility. We have looked at some prospective venues, namely the old St. John the Baptist School, which is located on Holders Hill. And to my mind, that's the most ideal location. The only challenge that would present is one of parking, given that it's on the main artery. But we have, in spite of the fact that a final decision hasn't been taken, we did put some funds in the estimate to ensure that that particular void is addressed in St. James South and St. James Central, because the closest community centers today would be Weston, as well as Eden Lodge, which are some distance apart. And the constituencies or the populations within the communities in Torrance Village, Holders Hill, Haynesville is very significant. So we do recognize the urgent need for this facility, and we're working towards that.
I thank you very much. Now, one perennial problem that we've experienced, and I'm hoping that in your estimates and your plans going forward, you have come up with a way in which it will be addressed. And this is a matter of maintenance. A lot of the fields become less than optimal for play, whether you're talking about cricket or football, etc. The maintenance on the equipment. We have struggled in St. James South to be able to have the fields cut. Sometimes we can have a foot and more of grass. And we have to be calling constantly, when can we get this cut? So I want to know what maintenance program and what resources have been allocated to try to wrestle this to the ground, because it leads to that irritant that the community feels and impacts on their sense of well-being, because they cannot at will go out and enjoy and use the facilities. And this leads to idle hands having nothing to do, which is very dangerous for our country. So the maintenance is a big issue, and we would like to know what has the ministry put in place this year to improve and upgrade the maintenance and regular cleaning, regular cutting, regular maintenance of the sports pavilions, and so on. Mine is still in need of some help. Even though we've sought to help ourselves, we're still awaiting some help with our sports pavilion.
Honourable Minister, it seems as if you were in my management meeting. The first management meeting this year, I have asked the Sports Council to put a detailed maintenance plan in place that will allow us not to have the complaint that you're coming with now, that all of the fields across the island, whether they're divided in zones, will be able to have regular maintenance in terms of cutting of the grass and taking care of the facilities. In addition to that, similar to community development, I have asked the National Sports Council to put center management committees in place at all of our pavilions that will allow a team or a grouping from within the community to be able to feed back information to the National Sports Council in relation to issues with the property and the playing field as well. But I will allow, again, Mr. Matthias to expand on this for you.
Good morning again. As the minister correctly said, he would have given us some instructions about getting a maintenance schedule in place. And we have started that procedure in terms of having assignments of persons inspecting and investigating each field/facility, and a checklist that they will walk with and that they will fill out to make sure that it is submitted so that we better able to monitor and all our fields or our facilities so that it doesn't get out of hand like you said just now. That system is in place, and I'm proud to say it has started to work. So we do have the equipment to do it. It is just that at certain points in the year, specifically, let me give you an example this year, when it's around the athletic season, second term of school, a lot of schools themselves ask for that equipment. No excuse for us not being able to get to all of our fields, but there's a huge shift in the dynamic of us sticking to that schedule because there are schools and there are other entities that ask for those cuts. So it puts a bit of pressure on the schedule that we have right now. And as soon as we get the request for the cutting of the schools, for athletics and stuff like that out of the way, we return to the schedule for our regular cutting and the regular maintenance of our fields. Yeah, so we do have enough equipment, and we always make sure the equipment is in good shape. And going forward, that is the additional schedule with the inspections will help us to alleviate that problem.
My third follow-up question continues to look at the issue of making provision for people to be able to use the facilities and providing them in the first place, maintaining them in the second place, and the third is providing the sports coaches to actually come and do the training at the community level. Now, I know that you've started such a program. I just wanted to get an update on where you are in terms of providing coaches in the communities to allow for the young people to effectively use for their exercise and enjoyment, and also to be able to identify some that have potential to go on to be professional athletes. So if you could share with us.
All right, thank you, Minister. Yes, we have put measures in place to do exactly what you're asking. The Community Coaches Program is one that we felt is necessary in order to boost what is happening with the coaches that are employed at the National Sports Council. And the Community Coaches Program revolves around us identifying individuals from within the communities all across the island, going through the first phase of training, let's call it level 1, where they will be able to do the basics of coaching. We send them back into the communities to find a grouping of 12, 15, how many youngsters to do coaching with that particular group. It is twofold. One, it is providing a structured activity for those youngsters, and two, it is giving these fledgling coaches an opportunity to hone their skills in terms of coaching. After a period of time, it is proposed that we come back and we upskill them again, where they now move to another level of coaching. Because I believe, and I've also always said from the time I sat in the chair, that if we're gonna have world-class athletes, then we must match them to world-class coaches. And hence, we are trying to make sure that we have a wide group of individuals who will be involved in the community coaches program, because for me right now, too many of our fields are dormant in the sense that on evenings, there are no activities taking place in terms of youngsters. So if we can have the community coaches program up and running, then I think that we will be doing something positive in terms of, one, adding some skills to the coaching fraternity, and two, providing structured activities for those youngsters. You mentioned taking care of the facilities. Even though it is sports, I'm gonna allow, because the center management committees were started at CDD, but as mentioned before, I have asked the National Sports Council to mimic what is happening at community development so that we can have those center management committees in place. And I'm gonna ask Ms. Kia Hines to give you some information about the center management committees and exactly how they're supposed to function.
Good morning, everyone. Kay Hines, Deputy Chief Community Development Officer. The vision of the Community Development Department is to build strong and vibrant communities across Barbados through several programming initiatives. A key element of implementing these initiatives is to ensure that our community and resource centers are open for extended hours. In 2021, following an internal examination of the department, a cabinet paper was written for the establishment of the center management committees. The key objectives are to have a cadre of trained volunteers at the community level to assist with the programming of the community centers, and also to ensure that our community and resource centers are open for extended hours. In 2023, 4 center management committees were formed at Rice's, St. Elizabeth, Draxall, and the Greens Resource Centers. Over the last 3 years, the committees have done several initiatives at the community level. For example, health fairs, partnering with other organizations, the DEO within the communities, and being involved in a number of Christmas initiatives. Today, the department has formed a total of 14 center management committees throughout the island. And we are intensively working to have the other 20 plus committees formed at the various community and resource centers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I trust that I will be hearing good results in terms of the center management for St. James South. This would be important to us, and we can speak offline about an update on that. And let me thank the team. You have such an important role to play in moving Barbados forward, and so you have our fullest support in relation to your work. Our ministry looks forward to also working with you very closely in helping to develop practitioners and persons who can engage at the community level and to be able to strengthen what you're doing, because it is good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Minister, I am acting on behalf of the good people of St. Michael Northwest and the Deacons community and surrounding areas. And my concern this morning relates to the Deacons Development Center being put back into good use to benefit the youth across the constituency. And I would like to know what plans your ministry has in relation to actually rebirthing this community center, the Deacons Development Center. It have been out of operation for a long time, and I know a lot transpired in between that time in terms of having it transferred from housing to the Ministry of Education, and presently now under the Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment. And I can say that Deacons is a sporting community. That facility have great potential in being able to become the first youth hub or youth development center to benefit the youth across this constituency. And I want to know what plans your ministry has to really put this facility back into use to benefit the good people across my constituency.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You are correct. I believe it was late last year, we had a site visit with the Barbados Vocational Training Board. The site visit was for us to see the facility, and it was indicated then that we would be again in control of the facility at Deacons. Unfortunately, at the time of the visit, it was outside of, or it was not included in our budget for the financial year. And you are correct, I see it as possibly the first youth center on island based on that tour of the facility. And rest assured that plans will be in train to make sure that we can bring it back to what it was before. I know there's several entities from within your constituency that were utilizing the location, including, I think it was a gym that was at the location. So I think that yes, under community development, we can build it out and use it as a training hub, not only for your constituency, but for the island as a whole. And if we can have several of the ministry's satellite programs happening at your location, I think it would be another training hub in relation to maybe hospitality and vocational training in another sphere. So rest assured that plans are in train to utilize the facility. Like I said, I have an idea that it should be a youth center. Youth is no longer under me, but I think I can work in concert with the minister in terms of community development to make sure that the facility don't remain dormant.
Thank you. You also know that that said facility also has a pasture connected to it. And in relation to the maintenance of that particular pasture and a few others across the constituency, to mention like Furnihurst, they also have like the Ellerslie School pasture as well. One of the things that I had requested previously was to have the lakes upgraded on that pasture. And prior to that, I had also requested back as far back as 2018 to also have lakes installed on Ellerslie School pasture to benefit that community as well. Could you tell me if having those lakes upgraded and the lakes installed on Ellerslie pasture will be possible within this financial year?
I will have to speak to my team in relation to Ellerslie. Look, you would have heard mentioned by Mr. Matthias that one of the locations identified for lights, the Lord School, and that came up from the time that I was at the ministry, and I indicated to them to pause because the truth is that, yes, lights may be required, but I don't think the impact will be that great at Lodge School as other areas. So I decided to pause the lights at Lodge until I can impact on other communities that are in real need of lights. You mentioned the pasture, and immediately I remember a meeting with the BFA where the international body is looking to develop what they calling mini playing fields at specific locations. One was identified at the Queen Elizabeth location, but that we since had to shelve that. And maybe your location at Deacons is fit for purpose now that we can move one of those small playing fields at the location, because the president came back to us sometime early this year to say that they're ready to go. And if it is the case that we can press the location in place, then yes. As far as the lights, I would allow Mr. Matthias to speak on the possibility of you having lights at Ellerslie. But note that we are trying to make sure that we place lights at locations that will have a significant impact in terms of the use of that particular location and the target population that we're trying to hold on to. Mr. Matthias?
Good morning again. To answer both the questions, as I had said earlier, we have some lights coming in that we would have ordered for the continuous upgrade of the facilities. So definitely Deacon's Pasture will be part of that upgrade in terms of the lighting. I will talk to the minister and my team regarding the lights at Ellerslie Secondary. It was not part of our original scope, but as the minister just said, we will meet and sit down and come to an understanding of how we can best assist with that.
Thank you, sir, and having them installed will be much appreciated. Thank you.
So noted.
Thank you. Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you have been recognized in your team as the best sporting team ever in Barbados. You yourself, and rightfully so, one of the best sporting ministers that we have seen grace our country. My question, unlike the others, does not have a parochial sense of appreciation, although it was initiated in the fulcrum of Christchurch, the great constituency of Christchurch West Central. It is a question that speaks nationally and otherwise to us having a sporting academy facility, whether it is concentrated on one particular sport or multi-sport in nature. Because over the years, athletes, and we know this, we have produced the likes of Delhi Thompson, Sadia Williams, you're looking at the not too distant past, and Ryan Braffett, world-class hurdler. We have produced great athletes. But the question has often been asked about having proper provisions. We are now living in an era of biomechanics. We have introduced science at a high level, the kinematics, all these things that are now injected into increasing the performance of athletes around the world. It's in my head that F. Barbados is supposed to produce competitive athletes, top performers in the way that other countries are doing. I would think that, Minister, that the conversation must now surround itself with us having equally top-performing facilities. Is there any plan in your ministry to have a sporting facility where the young footballer in Gaw Hill could go and have a school or facility from morning to evening, whatever, where he doesn't have to go work, come home tired, and rush to play a practice on evenings after he's tired from work, where he will learn all these different things that I discussed previously, where, in other words, we produce the holistic and top performer as it relates to our athletes in Barbados. Is there this plan to have this facility? And if so, can you expound on the importance of having these things so that our athletes can compete with the best in the world? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Minister. It is a destination that we're hoping to reach. I agree with you. We are on all fours that the world is moving to technology now where every single thing is being plugged into different devices to ensure that best results are coming out at the other end. In terms of having a facility, I think it would be an ideal situation to have maybe a school where our youngsters can go to that particular school, do schoolwork, and train as far as the athletics are concerned. But plans are in place. Only recently, Miss was here in the well, and I think that we must now work parallel to Miss in terms of trying to identify the necessary technology that we can put in place that will benefit our athletes. And this is athletes on the whole, not only track, because really and truly the world is moving at a pace where technology is embedded in every single thing now as far as sports is concerned. So I take your point, and like I mentioned at the very beginning, it is a destination that we're hoping to reach. And I believe that we can also work with the University of the West Indies because there is a partial high performance, speaking subject to correction, high performance center at the University of the West Indies by Dr. Rudolph Allen. And we're going to revisit that to see how the ministry can work along with the University of the West Indies to make sure that we have podium finishes as a regular in the international athletic setup. I hope I have.
Thank you, Minister. I look forward to us getting to that destination. And to finally say that sports and medicine are unequivocally linked. We just have to look and see what's happening in terms of the doping situation across the world. And I think it's equally important for athletes to be aware, to have the knowledge and be informed about even say simple basic food products that tend to raise the red flags when they go on the international meets, etc. So I look forward to the day that we can get to that stage. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister, allow me to join the chorus, not to fluff your ego, but mine is out of actual earned gratitude. So I want to start by thanking you and your team, a number of whom I personally know, for working hard with me over the last couple of years to help realize some of the dreams of people that I represent. So I want to start by thanking you for that. Now, I heard your comments in relation to the question by the Honourable for St. James Central South, St. James South, in relation to fields and maintenance and whatnot. Now, is there any thought given to the decentralization of the maintenance oversight? Let me explain. It is all of us have a headache. You have a field in your constituency that you want cut. That they got something going on, a football match about to happen, a cricket match happening, the field hasn't been cut. People seem to have not known that it has not been cut. And then you're scrambling and you can't get the equipment somewhere else, or there's only one tractor working or whatnot. Now, I understand this has been a model for a while. I do believe that a more useful model would be to put some of the maintenance for community fields in the communities. So if you have a group of persons, a lot of persons in communities do the bushing and do maintenance and whatnot as part of successive government programs to keep people employed. But if you have people who are capable of maintaining the fields, if you live in a community, you know the field ain't cut. You pass it on a day, you see the grass a foot long, you know a football match coming up, right? They're the people most perfectly positioned to actually maintain the grounds on behalf of the National Sports Council. It removes a headache from you. And frankly, if you have community-based persons, qualified community-based persons, who are supposed to be maintaining the field, and everybody knows they're supposed to be maintaining the field, and they don't do it, then that, quite frankly, does not blow back on you in a way that it does now. So I'm wondering if there has been any consideration given to awarding contracts to those persons such that they can actually procure their own equipment. They will have to be able to maintain their own equipment. They will have to be able to make a rotating schedule to deal with the fields in their catchment areas. And then you all can provide oversight on supervision. So as opposed to trying to find a tractor to send down to parish land, you could put Mr. Matthias in a vehicle and let him drive around to parish land and Silver Sands and Ferry Valley and whoever else to make sure that they actually are cut. One person instead of a lot more. Has consideration being given to that, and is that something that we can implement this financial year? I believe it will solve a lot of your problems.
Thank you, AG. I'm smiling because we try to be proactive in the ministry. It is unfortunate that maybe we have not reached you as yet, but I can assure you that all that you're asking for is already in place. I'm going to take this opportunity now as well to ask all members where there's a pavilion in your location, to submit names for that center management committee. Because in addition to our officers who are working at the location, the center management committees are supposed to do exactly what you're asking, to be able to interact with us at Central Ministry to say that X, Y, and Z should be put in place. But what you're asking for is already in place, where we have contracts being allocated to individuals from within communities. But I will allow Mr. Matthias to further expand.
Good morning, Nicholas Matthias, National Sports Council. I smiled as well when you were making that comment, along with the minister. Thus far, we have 11 contractors, brand new contractors, that we've engaged to assist us in the maintenance of our fields. We started this financial year, and I'm happy to report that it's working out well. So what we would have done, we would have assigned 6 fields to each contractor. We also would have started the program where they would more or less be given the startup tools, and based on how they work, they would pay back for the tools that we would have given for startup. Until they get their business to a level where the actual driving equipment, such as the mowers and stuff, come into play, we will assist them with the actual cutting of the surface, but they are responsible for the maintenance. Right now, we have 11 teams that have already been assigned, and exactly as the minister said, I would be very happy to engage anybody in the community who can also assist to this. And we can also have a discussion of this going forward, so that we would know how best we can go ahead going forward.
Well, thank you. That's some good news there. So I want to expand that exact same thing a little bit further. So that's in relation to the fields. But in relation to the general upkeep as well of the plants, we had a very harmonious relationship where some community people ended up helping to finish off the parish land pavilion, and they did so proudly and it did what it was supposed to do, because if you go there on any given day, the property is being well kept. So people are taking a pride in making sure nobody don't drop garbage there, making sure nobody ain't writing out the walls, whatnot. So the community did it, and the community is policing it itself. Now, I did go to a pavilion recently, and somebody gave me the child to hold. And I held the child and I was stepping back. It was one of those pavilions where the step is concrete and then there are boards across for the seat. And if you place that. So the seating is planks, but the structure is step-down blocks. And I stepped on a on a plank that was loose and almost gave way. And all you're thinking about is, please don't let this woman child drop, right? But equally in relation to the maintenance, it is hard once again, there are just too many sporting facilities in Barbados for you all to be able to adequately police it and monitor it. Like we are suggesting in relation to the upkeep of the fields, maybe we can again look at a policy where a costing is done, and then that goes out to the community as well. So you know it should take, I don't know, $10,000 to bring this here back up to scratch, right? You give the people $10,000 and they fix their pavilion or their sporting facility or replace this or replace that, and it takes it once again onto you. But based on the framework that you've laid out for the Center Management Committee, that is, I guess that is something that's being contemplated by them as well. Is it?
Very much so. One of the things that are, one of the requirements in relation to the setup of the Center Management Committees, because we're dealing with buildings, it is hoped or it is expected that at least one member of that committee would have some kind of knowledge in terms of construction or building, because then it would make it a lot easier when they're submitting reports to be able to identify, like you said, a plank that is loose. So all of that is embedded, and I will share the information with all members in terms of what is expected of those center management committees and the setup of the center management committees. The final thing in responding to you is that I think you're in a position to replace that baby if necessary.
Okay. And the last thing in this regard is, look, I think you should have a standard time for the opening of all facilities and a standard time for the closing of them. So if I decide that I want to go and scrimmage football, and I turn up and the field is available and I'm playing a game on it, I should be able to scrimmage, and if I have to go to the bathroom, know that the bathrooms are open until 8 o'clock, right? It should not be that you have to go and look for somebody with a key to come down and open. Exercise doesn't work that. If you're trying to get people to use our facility, it's not, the things are not just there for cricket. The things are not just there for football. Once you put lights on a field, you see people come out there, start to walk. As you put on lights on a field, people start exercise on it. A match might be going on or something might be going on, but people are still walking around the outskirts getting their exercise. So I believe we should have a schedule. You know this facility opens at 8 in the morning and it's open till 8 at night. The days of tracking down the caretaker for the key, I believe, should be gone. We're trying to get maximum use out of facilities. They should be open as long as possible every single day. So I want to know if you are looking at that. If you are not, I suggest that instead of just having the person who works, I don't want to think the caretakers actually work, to tell the truth, right? But it should not be that somebody works from 10 to 4. Because nobody use the playing field between 10 and 4. Right? People may use it in the morning early to get into exercise or run laps before going to work, and they're definitely looking to use the facilities when they come home. The sun goes on in Barbados way too early. Right? I wish we had daylight saving time, but we don't have it, we have lights, so I thank you for those. But with the lights come the invitation to use the field after dark. So if that is our intention, then we need to put the facilities and the resources in place to ensure optimal utilization of all of our fields. We're trying to get our Bajans healthy. We're trying to get them fit. So it can be that my exercise is stymied by the fact that I can't find a groundsperson to help me in my weak bladder. So what are you looking at in relation to that this year? And I believe it is a must.
Again, honorable member, plans are already there. The center management committees are supposed to kick in when my officers close at 4:30. The center management committees are supposed to take over from that time until 11:30 at night for exactly the same reason that you're identifying, that after work is the high use time for these facilities. So part of the onboarding for our center management committees is that when 4:30 and regular staff move away, then you will kick in terms of being able to provide opening hours for clubs, teams, like you said, people who just want to exercise at all of the locations. And this is the case for the community centers as well as the pavilions, because obviously people would need to use the washroom facilities, and from 4:30, the center management committees are supposed to take charge of the particular location. It is also part of their remit that if they figure there's a program that they need to put in place, that we will work with them to ensure. So if there's a guy who is prepared to do training for 50, 60 individuals at a particular playing field, then they can submit something and we will facilitate that as well. So that is the main purpose, or one of the main reasons for putting the center management committees in place across the island.
All right, thank you for that entirely. What I would say, don't hide your light under a bushel, right? The fact that you know that and your team is nodding and they know that, but half of Barbados does not know that, is not helping the half that does not know. And that's a excellent facility that you have, as you say, in place already. I think you should really publicize it so people know what capacity is there and how to access it.
Yeah, I take responsibility for that, and like I said, we will do the necessary pivot to make sure that all members are aware of the requirements as far as the center management committees are concerned.
Thank you very much, Minister, and your team. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My first round of questions, well, the first question and a couple of follow-ups relate to sports development. I see the vote, I think, under 0563. And there is a sub-program or a category of expenditure under 315 grants to non-profit organizations. Now, sports development, I believe that you would agree, has a community component. I'm asking specifically related to an initiative of the Parish Organizing Committee, the Pearson Jordan Memorial Road Race. Pearson Jordan being a former Olympian, no relation to me as far as I'm aware, but a former Olympian who was born and grew up at Sand Street in Speightstown. Is there a process for getting assistance in developing these community-birthed programs? I'm asking the question because we have had some assistance, but every year it seems to be a little bit uncertain. And what the chair and the committee of the Parish Organizing Committee and all those who work to organize this race, Memorial Road Race, are attempting to find out is what is the structure so that we are clear. And I ask the question in this forum because I believe that there are others listening, other colleagues, members of parliament who may have similar programs or ideas that could be birthed at the community level and would want to be sure that they're following the correct procedure so that they can obtain the assistance that I see in your vote in that, under that head. If it comes from there or if it comes from the National Sports Council, we're not sure. But I'd like some clarity on how do we access the assistance that will allow a community birth sporting program to flourish.
Thank you for your question, Honourable Member. Yes, one of the things I want to say here is that this government would have done so much in relation to sports development. For the first time in our history, and I dare say probably in the Caribbean, coming out of COVID, government would have provided every single NF, every single national federation with $25,000 in seed money to do development program or to engage in developing their particular discipline. In addition to that, an additional $5,000 in kind was provided to clubs that were affiliated with the national federations. And this went a long way in terms of helping sports to come back from COVID. In terms of your question now, I would say to you, yes, the ministry is constantly being asked to facilitate community projects that we think are wholesome. Then yes, we readily agree to fund some of those programs. If the ask is too big for the ministry to handle at a particular time, then we do referrals to the Arts and Sports Fund. But I will ask Mr. Rowe to give you some more details in terms of the process as to how your particular organization or entity in your constituency can source funding through the Ministry of Sports.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning. My name is Stephen Rowe, Sports Development Officer in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. Sorry, Sports and Community Empowerment. Now, the application process for such activities is that the entity writes to the ministry, first address the correspondence to the permanent secretary, articulating the nature of their event with all the specifics. And when I say all the specifics, the principles, the objectives, what funds they are seeking, what funds they are sourcing otherwise, and how they plan to execute the event. And the reason I say all of the information is because when some of the information is missing and it comes to the ministry, then the ministry has to reach back out to the individuals, the applicants, to request that additional information. And that process leads to delays. Once that information is complete, it is evaluated within the ministry, and where, as far as possible, some assistance is given. The ministry is normally inundated with applications, so notwithstanding you may have seen some in our estimates, we try as best as possible to stretch that as far as possible. As Minister would have indicated, where the ask is larger than the sums that we can provide, we normally channel that application to the Arts and Sports Promotion Fund. The applicants also have the option of writing directly to the Arts and Sports Promotion Fund, where it would be addressed to the chairman of the Arts and Sports Promotion Fund, Bay Street, St. Michael, Government Headquarters, Bay Street, St. Michael, and the same type of information would obtain, ensure that the application is complete, because where it's not, then the secretary of that committee would have to be writing back or calling back the applicant for that additional information. Once the information is complete, it is considered by a committee, the Arts and Sports Promotion Fund Committee, which makes recommendations to the fund manager, who then takes the final decision on what level of funds would be granted. And that response, those responses are then communicated to the applicant. So that's the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One follow-up question to that, do you have a time frame? Assuming that you have all the information, and I'm referring now to the ministry and not to the Arts and Sports Fund. Assuming that the ministry receives all of the information that is required, this is in the communication addressed to the permanent secretary, what is the approximate turnaround time? That is important information because planners need to have some kind of idea of when they're going to get a response when setting dates for activities.
I would say to you, Honourable Member, as long as all of the information is in place, 2 weeks should be a good time in relation to having a response from us about the requests that came for assistance.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping that that is not just your response, but your response on behalf of your ministry. That is to say that the officers are aware of that turnaround time. Now, if I ask another follow-up, and this continues to speak to community involvement in sports development, there was a response made with respect to the maintenance of fields. Now, I heard, let me indicate why I'm asking this. I'm asking it for the same reason, I believe, as the Honourable Attorney General, who spoke to locating maintenance in communities. What I thought I heard was that for some of the persons who have been allocated contracts, some have 6 playing fields. Now, there is no community in St. Peter that has 6 fields. So it means that if what I heard was correct, somebody from somewhere outside of the community is clearing or maintaining a playing field in the community. I've asked the ministry before, and I use the example of the Whitehall playing field, where the club, one of the 2 clubs that would be the main users of the field, saw an opportunity to both maintain the field and also get some resources to help in its own development. But that would be a single field because there's only one field in the Whitehall, mile and a quarter area. My question as a follow-up with respect to developing sports in communities, how can we facilitate clubs or other organizations within communities in maintaining the grounds and also being able to access funding? So by way of contract, how do we do that? Assuming that what I heard about allocating 6 fields is correct.
The easy answer to that, Honourable Member, is for the club to make representation to the National Sports Council, indicating that it is their desire or they're interested in doing exactly what you're saying, because we would not be aware that they have the wherewithal to actually do the maintenance of the location unless they would have submitted something indicating that this is something that we are proposing to do as not only self-help, but to source maybe funding or additional funding for that particular club. So as long as the community group or the club that is functioning at the location make representation to the Sports Council to indicate that we can do X, Y, and Z, then as far as possible, we will try to facilitate that.
All right, thank you very much. And the club will be making the necessary application and will obviously monitor the response. My final follow-up with respect to community and developing sports in the community. There was also discussion earlier about the center management committees. You have indicated that we should submit the names. My own experience and this may be related to community centers. I'm not sure, I have to double check. But I became aware of a center management committee. I'm not sure if it's a community center, but the members of that committee in one or two cases were not known to me, so obviously not submitted through the Member of Parliament or the Office of the Member of Parliament. I understand that 14 committees have been set up so far, and this is with respect to sports, so these are pavilions. And my question is, are any of those 14 in St. Peter? I just want to know what's already done so that I don't try to redo something that's already done. And I think you will understand why I'm asking, what I'm trying to say by asking that question as well.
I will ask the Deputy Chief Community Development Officer to respond to you.
Ms. Hines, Deputy Chief Community Development Officer. Yes, one of those center management committees is indeed in St. Peter at the Boston Bell Community Center.
Thank you very much. That is the one, Mr. Chair, I need to do a follow-up because that is the one I already know about. The question really related to the pavilions, which I think, when I wrote down the note, 14 done so far, I think it was said but I thought it was said in relation to pavilions. Are you saying that the 14 related to community centers?
These are around the entire island.
Okay, so one community center, but there are no pavilions that already have. So we're not to submit for the pavilions. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I yield back until you do your second round.
Sorry, Minister, I think you have one facility that is dual purpose, if I am correct. So you may not need to submit one for the pavilion if the community center is in place. I'm speaking subject to correction, but I think that one of your facilities is a...
Yes, that is Black Bess, where there's the pavilion on the east and upper and the resource center on the ground floor and to the west.
Okay, it will be sorted. I will be in contact with you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by thanking the Honourable Minister for his forthright contribution to the committee this morning. And let me congratulate him and his team for the excellent work that you have been doing, working with the sporting organizations to ensure that the government does not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. I certainly, from my experience with dealing with you, Minister, and many of your team, have felt that the ministry has been working hard to ensure that sporting organizations in Barbados can continue to survive. Indeed, we are very happy in the community of St. Thomas that the Bridgefield facility, the mini stadium there has had its fair share of the pie, and we look forward to continuing the work to develop the facility there. In the Jackson area, Ms. Jackson St. Michael, which also happens to be part of the constituency of St. Thomas, there's a thriving sporting community that uses the facility at the hard court there. They've had a very prominent basketball and volleyball team set up there for a little while. But for many, many years, they lacked any bathroom facilities and any other facilities at all. So my concern is, to what extent can the ministry or the Sports Council work with the community to secure the necessary funding through fundraising, engaging in the corporate communities around the area that sponsor these teams to develop facilities that would allow people to practice and recreate in a dignified manner without having to go to use, in local terms, the bush or behind a car or something to relieve themselves, or have to go home in order to relieve themselves. It is my view that that facility could be developed to the extent you can even put bleachers with some kind of roof structure on it, solar panels, lights, to create the all-weather type environment for the sports that use the facility in Jackson to be able to participate and fully in it. Because as Honourable Member for Christchurch East says, the sun goes down very quickly in Barbados. And you have a short window of opportunity after leaving work to get home, to get to the sporting or community facility. So therefore, and if the rain falls, that's the end of the day for you. So what plans do you have to develop that facility, if at all? I know there's been talk about using the containers and getting them in. Those will certainly be cheaper to install and to maintain than building out a concrete structure. But we want to know how possible would it be for the ministry or the sports council to engage with the community to build out that facility there.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You're absolutely correct. One of the things that we would have discovered in the ministry is that the bricks and mortar solution as it relates to the pavilions are proven to be very, very expensive. And we have looked at as you rightly mentioned, the container solutions in terms of being able to do something that is quick and something that is still very much adequate for the purpose that we intend it to be. So to have your location come up to scratch, so to speak, what we will do is to organize with you to do a site visit to see what is possible in relation to your location. As far as the lights are concerned, let me state again that government is absolutely committed that wherever the playing fields that we believe lights will benefit that community, that over the course of time, we will install lights to make sure that we have best results in terms of a structured environment for our young people, not only the young, because we know that there's some seniors who utilize these facilities as well for exercising purpose. So I can assure you, Honourable Member, that we will contact you and organize that site visit, because I'm not familiar with the location myself, but my team will organize with you to do a site visit and to see what is the best possible solution for your location in terms of lights and in terms of having a pavilion that your youngsters or the community can utilize.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The community in Jackson would well appreciate that site visit. And indeed, the community center in Jackson would also need a little bit of a facelift, and I'm sure the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast would join me in saying that it would go a long way to facilitate the progress initiatives that have been birthed in the community in the Jackson area. There are community centers in St. Thomas that are a bit dormant. The community center at Rock Hall, a previous administration had turned it into a court, and since about 2018, the court has gone to King Garden. That facility has not been turned back over to the community. And the Rock Hall Community Center was indeed a vibrant part of community life for the whole parish, because at one stage it was the only community center in the parish of St. Thomas. The housing settlements at Rock Hall and Contact are getting larger and larger. Indeed, there's another set of housing being put in by the developer on the southern side of the road at Content. And therefore, I would like to know what are the plans for the development of that facility? When can it be turned over to the community? And I'm indeed very titillated by the idea of the community management teams that you mentioned. I've already contacted my people to ask them to start to submit the names, Minister. I'm very happy that you have brought that to us and invited us to compile these things. But the community center at Rock Hall needs to be re-engaged and redeployed back into the community. And my people will be very happy to know when that can happen.
I'm going to ask the chief to speak to this, but I want to say to you that one of the things I have asked community development to start this financial year is a quest to see how many community groups we can have in place again on island. Because I think it is absolutely necessary, not only for self-help, but to have community groups alive and well and utilizing our community centers is one of the main priorities for the Community Development Department this year. Because not only will it then benefit our young people, but some of the seniors who were engaged in a number of activities at one point in time in our community centers, it is really flat or dormant now, and we need to breathe some life into that again. So I have asked community development to ensure that part of our focus this year is to re-engage and to restart community groups all across the island. But I will allow the chief to speak to you as well.
Thank you, Minister. John Hollinsworth, Chief Community Development Officer. As it relates to the Rock Hall Community Center, the former D Court Complex, we are actively engaged in bringing that into use for the members of that particular community. We have just requested, and they have completed, a survey plan for the facility, because we need to know what the boundaries are, because there's a gentleman who operates nearby, and we don't want to encroach on any private property before we commence our work. We have actually completed had the architectural drawings completed. We would have had the scope of works completed as well. And funds are earmarked to complete that facility. Now that the site plan has been provided, plans are actually on course to start the work in the coming financial year, 2026 to 2027.
Just as a follow-up, Chair, thank you. Very happy to hear that the plans have been spec'd out and the budget has been allocated. The only challenge is that I don't think anyone in the community knows that that is happening. And certainly, it would be good if the community and Rock Hall and Content are brought on board at the soonest possible time to let them know what are the plans to roll the center, because at the end of the day, it is the center that will be used by the community. And while you're improving it, and we look forward to the improvements, there's land around the facility that I believe may be owned by the state and not necessarily by the people who are occupying it during the private activities that you have there. In fact, some of them have even approached to find out, I think you might be talking about the auto body mechanics that operate around the area. They too are interested in having some facility where they can actually do some training for some of the youth in the community in that area there, and they're keen on it as well. And in fact, they have approached to ask whether or not the state would be interested in facilitating their continued use of the land adjacent that way to the west of the community center. So that when we have this site visit, I think we should perhaps arrange to have some unveiling of the plans that the ministry has for the reopening of the center. It would be good to have the community to buy back in with that. My next question in relation to the community center is consent center in Upper Dunscombe Hill. There's this very small community center that was built many years ago, but it has not been maintained at all. It's not a very large facility, but it does service the Dunscombe, Canefield communities up the hill where there are no playing fields nor facilities for two very tight-knit communities in Canefield and in Upper Dunscombe. And last week I would have mentioned to one of my colleagues about the lack of community facilities in areas in rural Barbados that are cut off. So I just want to know if you have any plans for that facility in Upper Dunscombe, what we call Dunscombe Hill, sorry.
Thank you again. The facility you're referring to on Dunscombe Hill is not actually owned by the state. That is owned by, for want of a better word, an NGO that was built some years ago through assistance from one of our construction firms. It is Hillview, I think his name was the club, but yes, that's Hillview. And I would have known that through another occupation that I was involved in at that particular time. What we would have to do where that is concerned is seek possibly to acquire it or some other means, or to assist the owners of the facility to turn it into a functioning facility so that the members of that particular community would be able to benefit from its use once again.
I'm glad to hear that being clarified, because it is now in a state of disrepair, and we would not want it to fall into the wrong hands or the wrong elements. The doors and windows are off. There's no electricity, so we know what is going to happen there if we don't make sure that, but it would be vital to have it brought back into service for the community. It is very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.
Honourable member, just to follow, I'll ask the PS to speak on the area that you mentioned in terms of your constituents not knowing about some of our programs. She will share some information with you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. Joy Adamson, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment. We do have a Community Development Department community canvas that is being aired now on CBC at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays. We had a similar program called Bridges before with the youth. So we are advertising a lot of the programs happening at the community centers. And what I will make sure to do is coming up then in future programs that we highlight the Rock Hall area so that that is known to the community.
Thank you.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favor, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 20 minutes past 12.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 20 after 12. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 20 after 12. The sitting is resumed. We continue with Standing Finance Committee and the debate on the Appropriation Bill 2026.
Standing Finance Committee resumes. Before we proceed, let me remind honorable members that you have 3 minutes within which to pose your question. If you utilize the entire 3 minutes with your preamble, then that opportunity to raise a question will be denied. So please get to your questions as quickly as possible so that the officers can have the opportunity to answer the question. And equally to the officers or the minister present, you need to get to your responses as quickly as possible to utilize the time that we have so that you are able to truly explain what is happening within the ministry. Thank you. Honorable member for St. Philip North.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My preamble would be very, very short. My questions would be surrounding more or less the St. Mark's Resource Center and the adjacent playing field. We all know, and I've met with the ministry before, we all know that sports is oftentimes community sports, the gateway to scholarships, to being national athletes. My interest really is in the promised hard court. The members, all of them, I think in here, know when we went through the hard court or the proposed site for the hard court sometime back. And there was also issues with the car park close to the resource center or of the resource center where it can be used for sports, road tennis, skating. That was one of the proposed things that we wanted to do there. And thank you for the lights that were installed. I really appreciate it. Hopefully sports will get to going soon from now. But my concern really are the plans for the hard court. When should we expect them? And the repair of the car park and any other future plans for the St. Mark's Resource Center.
Thank you for your question, honorable member. Again, I will ask Mr. Matthias to address your concerns.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nicholas Matthias, National Sports Council. I'm happy to let you know, as you already had said, the lighting and the field has been completed this financial year. And we are going to start that hard court within the next 2 weeks. I've already reached out to the contractor, and we have done more or less a plan that we have to put it in place, and we're going to do our first visit sometime next week, so we can try to break ground before the end of this month. Also, I'm happy to report, because the pasture, the field, is part of the new proposition for the football. We were waiting until the end of sports season because the primary school was using it. So the field itself is going to be regraded as part of the program. And going forward, it will fall into part of the football dedicated fields. But that does not stop the school from using it. The school will use it for athletics, for what they need for, but it will still be the community field for football.
Thank you, and I applaud you for that. I look forward for 2 weeks from now hearing from you, and I will hold you to that. The St. Mark's School, thanks that they can also use that. There are no other choices for them right now. There have been complaints about the pavilion. I am not sure if somebody is working in it right now in terms of cleaning and so on. Is that in place as we speak? Because I heard complaints up to today about the standard of cleanliness within the pavilion.
Please follow up, Mr. Matthias.
Yes, so what we've done, because there is no person directly assigned, we've actually issued keys to the school. And the school has actually been maintaining the cleanliness of the pavilion for us. But obviously, because of the designation for the football field, we will have somebody back up there and working. It's just a matter of what we get put in place. Obviously, if you have the hard court, you have the lights, there will have to definitely be somebody up there because of the increase in the usage of the facility that we plan to have. So that will definitely be something that's on the cards.
Okay, last bit attached to that, the sports council coaches, we will be involving them with respect to use of the hard courts and so on for the community.
I'll speak to that as well. Of course we will. There is a coach attached to the school, as you may know, for athletics. And obviously once the hard court is there, you normally have basketball, volleyball, netball, and road tennis will be included as part of that court. So I am almost 100, if not 100% sure that the sports council coaches will be brought in and they will be involved heavily in the usage of the facility.
Okay, thank you. I meant beyond the school though, in terms of teaching the community?
Yeah, because we have the after-school programs that we do, and I'm pretty sure that we will engage the community in that way as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member for St. George North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I welcome the initiative that I learned about to restart the community groups and the opportunity to have clearly established center management committees, since there may have been similar committees established a long time ago in some areas, which either are not functioning or where they might be functioning may appear to communities as not aligning with the ministry's vision of making sure that there's widespread use and community participation and so on. So that initiative is welcome. What I want to find out though is where we speak about lighting being available, still we hear of clubs and groups that will want to access facilities but are still being charged to use lights. And I do recall that the Honourable Prime Minister had made an announcement some time ago that where there are clubs, sporting groups that will be requesting the use of the facilities for training and so on, that they should not be charged. Yet this is something that your ministry has not facilitated. I need you to comment on that.
Thank you, Honourable Member, and I agree with you 100%. I too am impacted by that at Gore Hill, and rest assured that this year, the situation of charging community groups or clubs will be rectified. So I'm totally on all fours with you on that the Prime Minister had given an instruction that this is something that should obtain, where clubs should not have to pay for lights at the point in time. So it will be put in place this financial year.
Can you explain why it was not put in place? Because that is something, to say it's going to happen in the financial year is all well and good, but as we speak, it's something that should be happening. So why was there the hesitance or resistance to implement?
Not resistance, Honourable Member. We had a situation where we would have changed over from tokens to cards. So that would have been part of the delay in terms of having all of the locations switch over to cards. I think we're still in the process of switching some from the token situation to using that card. Mr. Matthias, can you speak to this?
Good afternoon again. Yes, we are still in the process of the changeover. And as soon as we get that completion, we can better put in place the issuing of the cards to the individual clubs. And I will be guided by our minister and how we get these things put in place so we can get that
put forward.
Honorable Minister, I would like to suggest that perhaps you do not insult our intelligence, because if it is something that was to be in place, that there should be no cost. Tokens or cards shouldn't make a difference. No cost is no cost. It just simply should not be applied. And perhaps I'm sorry that the honorable member for St. Michael Northeast is not in here to hear that response. But I will move on from there, and I will ask, I heard your response to the honorable member for St. Thomas, and I have a similar concern, which I would wish for your ministry to clarify as it relates to the Sheffield playing field. Because very often people come and have an expectation that the Sports Council should do something. First of all, I would want to thank you for the lights that you have installed at that playing field, notwithstanding the question that I'm going to ask, which relates to who is responsible for the Sheffield playing field. And this is less for me and more for the public, particularly those in the area who may have concerns around where ownership lies.
I understand your concern. I remember doing a site visit there, and I'm really not sure, so I'm going to ask the director of the National Sports Council to answer your question.
Thank you, Neil Merrill, Director, National Sports Council. This, and in reply to you, Honourable Member of St. George North, this has been an ongoing issue as to if the playing field at Sheffield is a part of community development or part of the National Sports Council. The National Sports Council over the years has been taking part and maintaining the pavilion at Sheffield, and we continue to do so. So we will suggest that it falls under us until we get the information or other information that it falls under someone else. So we take the responsibility at this stage for maintaining the ground at Sheffield. Thank you.
Okay, so with response to that, then that provides clarity to what would be my follow-up, that when we come to nominating center members for Center Management Committee, that Sheffield too would fall under that particular initiative. All right, thank you. Chair, I yield for another round of questioning.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have very similar concerns, I have come to realize, right across the constituencies. Certainly in St. Andrew, we've had challenges with lights. And I guess, to my mind, I would want to know what the thinking, like the criteria that goes into identifying locations for lights. Over time, lights on the playing field or hard court have come to be more important than just an area for playing. I think as a crime fighting measure, I am sure the member for the city can tell you that young persons in communities where there's lighting for evening activities, those persons are less likely to get into idle behavior. And I've seen even in my own community of Orange Hill, and I've seen it also in Belle Plaine as well, where lights were installed on those playing fields down there, and now late in the afternoon, you see a lot of young fellas that would be otherwise engaging in idle behavior, now forming teams and being part of constructive engagements or constructive behavior in their communities. So I'm thinking that, I'm hoping that the reason, because I used to think in the past that lights were mainly those fields where there were cricket teams or known football teams were were the ones who got the first pick. But sometimes in some communities where there are no teams, the reason why there are no teams is because persons having to work in the day, coming in the afternoon, they never got the opportunity to form up teams or to develop teams. So I would hope that going forward that communities that are not only underserved, but communities that where there's a high potential for persons to engage in lawlessness, that those communities also become part of the, if it's not already the case, take into consideration when you are looking for lights in those communities. But my question this morning has a lot to do as it relates to community engagement. The various PACs across the country. I know that program has been used by young people for a number of years in terms of expressing talent in the community, expressing the natural heritage of communities and so on and so forth. I just look to the corner of my eye and see that the speaker look with a little smile, a little twinkle in his eyes because he knows that his parish has been exceptional over the years. And I would want to congratulate them for every year that they've won, many years now. I will hope that my own parish at some point could get to the standard where the parish of St. Lucie,
Honourable member, you're
yes, I know I have a
closing
little bit of
your
time, so I'm going to ask my question.
So please ask
Are
the
there any
question.
plans? Yes, sir. Any plans to revamp, the Spirit of the Nation show, the whole program? A number of things. I know they have some challenges, some struggles with funding and so on and so forth. Some groups are not as well in terms of fundraising as others. Are there any plans to revamp that program in any way, shape, or form? So it would be perhaps more inclusive. It would be persons would have opportunities to do more things. It would cover more than it currently does right now.
All right, honorable member, I'm not sure I got the question. I'm hoping that.
There are plans to revamp the program. That's why I asked.
Sorry?
Are there any plans to revamp the program?
All right, I will ask the head of the CICS, Ms. Jessica Paris, to address your concerns.
Thank you, Minister. Jessica Paris, Coordinator, Community Independence Celebration Secretariat. Just to respond, sir, yes, there are plans to revamp the program. We're always looking to ways to improve on the program because the program is one that affects many persons. I'll start first with the creation of a cadre of community practitioners through the parish independence committees. As you're aware, they're a volunteer body in each parish, and they work assiduously throughout the entire year to ensure that the program is undertaken. Then we look at the parish ambassadors. We try to empower our young persons between the ages of 18 and 30 for their self-development, what they want to do with their future. So that program is ongoing as well. And then we look also at the persons, you mentioned parish talent. We have a wide age of persons coming through that parish talent over the years, and this is coming from each parish. When you look at when the program started in 1995, and right now through to 2026, and we look at each parish putting forward at least 5 ads per parish. That's a lot of persons that came through the parish talent program. So yes, we are looking at ways to improve it. I should also mention designers. We have those unearthed designers that we know their work would not have been shown on any stage, but we've been showcasing them also on our stages as well. So as I said before, we're looking at ways to revamp the program to improve it for all of our participants, not just the young persons, but the other persons in the program, or community practitioners through the parish independence committees, parish talent participants, or designers, for example, those persons who work with us in the communities, the small businesses, for example, those tent operators, the caterers. There's a wide section of persons that we work with throughout the year, and of course, as you said, we will always try to find ways to improve on the program instead of just staying stagnant.
And thank you. In terms of funding the program, I'm sure many of my colleagues here would have been approached over the years by members of the committees for assistance with funding, with in terms of transportation, in terms of funding with the gongs and the various things that they need for the program. Are there any plans to perhaps increasing the availability of funds within the program so that those various committees can have more access to the resources that they need?
Let me take part of the question. The reality is that we're talking 11 parishes. There's an allocated budget every year for this. But one of the things that we expect is that those PICs would try as much as possible to engage in some of their own fundraising to take the pressure off of the ministry in terms of facilitating everything. So you are functioning within a parish, and part of the expectation is for you to be able to interact with businesses, small businesses within the parish, to be able to help raise some funds to cut costs. It is virtually impossible for us to increase the budget, let's say every year, to do some of the projects or to do some of the costumes that would come from the PICs. So we do what we can with the budget that was allocated, but then the onus is on the PICs to be themselves, be proactive in terms of fundraising. So I don't know if Ms. Paris wants to add to that, but that is my take.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, one of the objectives of the program is to promote a sense of self-sufficiency within our constituents. And we encourage the parish independence committees to have a working relationship with those small businesses within their respective communities. Some are more effective than others, and some have a larger pool of which to play in than others. What we've done also, as the Minister rightly said, we have a limited budget, but what we've tried to do is increase the subvention which we issue to the parish independence committees yearly. And that subvention is basically a startup fund to assist in any fundraising efforts that they may have. We encourage them also to look at their planning for the year, to look at their budgeting, so they don't go over budget, to look at what was needed within the program and they work accordingly. So yes, we do assist them, but one of the objectives is to promote that sense of self-sufficiency within our parishioners.
Thank you, Minister. I give back my time. I have another question, but I don't think I can knit it into this one, so I would come back later.
Thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Minister, coming back around, a lot has been done in your space over the last couple of years, and we're seeing the results of it. We're seeing increased interest at the, sorry for want of a better term, inter-school sports. I can never remember which one is which, right? Inter-school sports, we're seeing a lot more interest at football. We're seeing a lot more interest in the development of the traditional sports. But there is a sport that I believe is being prioritized and not being exploited to the full extent that it should be in Barbados, and that's the sport of shooting. It may be a surprise to a lot of people that our local competitors actually perform exceedingly well in both regional and international competitions. For the size of Barbados and the size of the, I guess, fraternity, we have some exceptional results coming from a small island in terms of shooting. You know Michael Maskell at the Olympics. I mean, he was a staple at the Olympics until the last one. You have the Michelle Elliott, right, as well in shotgun. We have a number of persons doing handgun, IPSC, and we have some quite accomplished rifle shooters. Now, I raised this question when tourism was in the well, in terms of us developing sports tourism in that department. But I do believe I have an obligation to raise it with you as well. There's a lot of development going on in it. I'm probably going to get them to invite you to see the development that's going on out by the Clay Target Shooting Association, where is actually being taken really seriously. And a lot of development is being done from their own end. But because it is not a traditional sport, although we're reaping the success, I don't think that sufficient attention has been paid to the development and sports that can actually only proceed with governmental assistance and governmental backing in the development because of what it actually is. I'm just wondering what plans you have, if any, for the expansion of non-traditional areas of sporting that would encompass that over the next year.
Thank you for the question, Minister. Look, the number of what I would call sleeper sports on island. For example, the mind games are not sexy, so it is not a case that a lot is heard of bridge, dominoes, whist. These games these sports are sleeper sports, similar to what you're saying as it relates to shooting. The truth is that for the time that I was sitting in the chair as minister, I have not seen a single piece of correspondence coming from the shooting association in relation to working with the ministry in terms of developing shooting. And I'm inviting you now to ask the head of the shooting organization to send us some correspondence so that we can meet and see how best that government can assist in terms of raising the profile of shooting. Because I don't think a lot of people, as you rightly mentioned, would have been aware of it. I know we had some discussions and I was not aware that it was at the level. Yes, I'm familiar with the name Maskell going to the Olympics on several occasions, but outside of that, I am not familiar with the sport. So I'm saying that if the National Federation contact the ministry, then my team and I can sit down and we can discuss how to move the process forward.
So in keeping with thank you for that. And I hope that they're listening, but I will convey the message on. The other thing in terms of sporting development, where this question originated, once again, we have everywhere is a big field. They got a football team or a cricket team that utilizes that field and is associated with that field. But I think we've invested way too much money in terms of development of playing facilities to not be investing as well in the development of community-based athletics. It used to be an issue that people could not just run anywhere because if you had to be a certain standard so you don't break your ankle going around the bend, right? But we have, when I say we, I mean you, have put a lot into the development of your fields. I understand as well, if we look at the times that have been coming in for the CRIFTA qualifiers recently, our athletes have actually been doing pretty well, and we're hopeful. If you hear Mr. Lynch from the BOA talking, you would think that we're going to break every record for relays. Pardon? Sorry, the AA, the 3 A's, right? You will be convinced we're going to break every record for every relay in the upcoming CRIFTA this year. But the point is, I remember when I used to do athletics, I may surprise some people that, yes, I used to be an athlete, right? We only got to the stadium or on a hard track, on a proper track for national championships. Literally every meet you had was on grass. So that's how Obadele Thompson came up running on grass. I actually happened to share a record for the medley relay with Oba. I think it still stands now. Due in no small part to his running the 400 and making up for the defects in my 200. But the record will show that I was on the team. But the point is, I think instead of us centering, you've done a lot in relation to the tracks. You're looking to have the stadium, the practice track at the stadium, a track Wildy, right? But the development of local athletics in the communities is something I believe should actually be encouraged. I don't think we should leave it necessarily to an organic development. I think there should be a concerted effort to encourage and incentivize the development. If you got children running about making themselves tired in the afternoon, they can't get out to mischief, right? If you got children with something to do every Saturday morning, then it frees up the parents to do something else, right? It helps to build community pride as well. So I'm just wondering, in your sports development, having just answered my question about the development of shooting, what is there in terms of generating the development of sports and activities in the communities? What incentives can you provide, and is there a contemplation to do that? Not just leave it organically, but to have a structured push for the development of sports, sporting teams, and athletics in communities.
Thank you for the question, Minister. Look, you're absolutely correct. One of the things that we need to do is to push the sports at the grassroots level. I would have mentioned earlier about the community coaches program. There's a dearth, in a sense, of track coaches across the country to do exactly what you're saying. One of the things that I would have asked the Sports Council to do is to look at restructuring our times in the schools. So you have a situation where our coaches go to the schools and really and truly it is not enough time to impact the particular discipline. So you have 15 minutes to get the children out, another 15 minutes to change into uniforms, which equates to maybe half an hour of actual training. So if we can relook that and then move to in the afternoon, maybe from 3 until 5, where you have more time to truly develop the sports. But it speaks to coaches and having the requisite amount of coaches to facilitate training in the afternoon. And one of the things that I'm hoping for is that all of our playing fields become alive in the afternoon session with people doing exactly what you're saying. Talent identification is something that is absolutely critical if we're going to move to the next level. But if there's no one doing the talent identification either at community level or maybe today at NATSAT, then we're just having an entertainment package. The children are running, they're doing what they have to do, get in the bus, go home. But nobody is saying, well, you got some skill sets in the 200. Let's see how we can hold you and channel you into maybe, if not a community, a national program. I may get into some trouble for this, but I think in some cases, a lot of the coaches are tribal, and it is like, I'm coaching you and you have certain potentials, but I can only take you to a certain level, where another coach now can move you to the next level. And in my view, my personal opinion, it is hampering a lot of the sports that we're having because people figure, this is my athlete and I need to hold on to them forever. So one of the things to remedy what you're suggesting is to have that same community coaches program now look at training some track coaches. I remember maybe a year and a half ago, I had a meeting with Glenn Mills, and he said that these reporters came from the States to see how he was doing his training, and they asked him to take them to the track, and he said, you're standing on it. Same thing that you're saying, a grass field is what he was using to develop the athletes in Jamaica. So the quick answer to you, AG, is to see how we can have, bring in maybe some resources to do some coaching programs for athletic coaches, and then let them go to different communities to do what you are suggesting, to look at youngsters within either the school setting or within the community and start track clubs at those locations that we can see what is happening. In recent times, I would have asked the research section at my ministry to go into the primary schools to see how many youngsters are involved in any type of sports within the primary setting. Odd enough, the school with the most people involved in any kind of sports was West Stars. And you can see that West Stars was dominating in several different disciplines across the island. And when you look at, yes, Minister, when you look at their academic performance as well, it was suggesting that they were doing really well also. So, which means that there's that balance, or they were able to balance the academics and the athletics at that particular location. But not a lot of schools are, let me say, equipped with PE teachers. So therefore, it is just up to maybe one or two teachers in the school setting to say, well, look, I'm going to pay attention to sports. But when our youngsters are involved in training as far as track, or there's a dedicated PE teacher, you can see the difference at knapsack. The ones who are running in spikes, the ones whose form is looking totally different to those who are not training. So it is something that concerned me, and I can promise you that I'll be paying attention to it going forward.
Okay, so the last thing, and this is, once again, sport and development. I believe we should be looking at picking some low-hanging fruit. There's certain standard things that happen in athletics. They happen in indoor athletics, they happen in outdoor athletics. One of which is, for example, a long jump, triple jump. Most of our fields on the periphery of the fields have excess space that we don't utilize, right? I know this was because this was pointed out to me by a coach recently, that along these fields, standard should be a sandpit. Standard should be a sandpit with a triple jump marker and a long jump marker. It takes nothing out of it. It is put in once. Every so often you add some sand or rake it or whatever. But we have athletics being practiced at a number of the grounds, but they then limit the athletics to running. They ain't got no hurdles knocking about there, so it's running. Whereas it should be real simple and easy to include a jumping facility. So we tend to have a lot of runners, a lot of people who competing at a certain level in running, but we have nobody emerging in relation to the jumps, because you can't jump off the grass and land back on the grass. So simple things, like when we look at the redevelopment of our fields, let us put things there that don't necessarily cost a lot, but have a practical utility. Another example is if you go to Trinidad or Jamaica, in a lot of places where you have play parks, because they do the same thing, community play parks. You have the play parks for the kids, but then you have those outside exercise things for the parents near the play park. So when the children run about, daddy could be doing tricep dips or pull-ups or something. These are things that don't necessarily cost a lot. They're real low maintenance, but would also help to spur that development and that fitness. We just don't have enough of them, and to me, they're real low-hanging fruit because you buy them once. For example, you put on a pull-up bar, unless somebody deliberately destroys it, it's there forever. By the time you put a tricep, outside gym equipment that parents can actually get themselves fit while the children run about on the slides or swinging on the swings. And those could also be put down close to the same fields that have the football and the cricket and whatnot. As I said, a lot of them have excess stuff around it. So to put that in a question, do you have that in the plan? And if you don't have it in the plan, can it be included for next year?
Thank you. I'm going to go a little broad before I come back to you. Look, I was in Cuba, I think, last year, and we passed a playing field where what would be equivalent to our primary school children were practicing hurdles. I believe, subject to correction, in Barbados, hurdles start in the secondary school, maybe when you're 14, 15. And you could understand why some places like Cuba, as far as the hurdles are concerned, are so way ahead of us. I went to a gym, and these guys were using bottles in their hand with weights in order to train sand. So I'm saying that you need to use what you have in order to develop the sports project. And you are absolutely correct. For years, the whole country was asking, when are we going to get a national stadium? And the same thing that you identify is the same thing that I was saying all along. The jumps, the throws, these things don't happen on a 400 track. They're field events. And you asked the question, what was happening over the period in relation to our field events? Why is that we were not developing world beaters in high jump, long jump? Because everybody was saying we need a stadium, but then there's a whole range of activities or sports that don't take place on the 400 track. And the 400 track that is coming at Wildy, we have made provisions in the center of it, I believe, to have other disciplines at the location. And yes, again, if we have the requisite coaches to be able to move these high jumps and the discs, and I think Wendy Barra is probably one of the best coaches on island as far as the throws are concerned. But how many people are understudying Miss Barrow in terms of when she move away to take up the mantle to run with it? And if that don't happen, then you're gonna have a situation where the throws or whatever will just plateau and then they will fall even further. So your point is well taken, and it is something that occupies my mind in terms of how now we treat to not only the track, but how do we treat to developing our athletes who are doing throws, who are doing jumps, because it is all part of the setup. So your point is well taken, and like I said, it is something that I am concerned about as well. PS is reminding me, yes, the outdoor gyms are something that is happening. Every single constituency will be outfitted with one. Areas where we can put these gyms will be put in place because I've realized that a lot of seniors as well are using them because it's basically body weight that you're using instead of free weights. And I think it is necessary to keep people active and moving. The NCDs are real. So we're looking at on a systematic basis of building out the constituencies with those outdoor gyms.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Minister, I'm going to be very brief. I wanted to begin on the point of reflecting that, and I have been here and gone through an estimates exercise since 2003. And I do not know that I can honestly say that I have not reflected. There was not always this type of approach, as you know. But every time the question of sports was raised, the inescapable issue for me and my constituency has been that between Prospect in St. James and Paynes Bay, we easily have approximately 5,000, 6,000 people. And there's only one playing field. And over the course of the years, I'm happy to say that I was able to preside over that Good Shepherd field, having a hard court, but not on the field, but next to it. And some lights were put there. But the question of a pavilion is one that has been able to elude successive administrations of this country during that period of time, and obviously before. So the simple question is, what do we have to do to be able to get a pavilion at Good Shepherd? I have had a similar lamentation, you know, about a community resource center. And the Honourable Member for St. James South earlier spoke to that matter. Now largely on her behalf, more so than mine, because I confess that I have reached the stage of being in the winter stages of my discontent. You know, winter is that season where you get absolute coldness and frost. So I said, I stoops my mouth at your ministry, not you. And I felt that the people had come to a point where something else had to happen. And so I was able to procure a container and retrofit it to create a community center at great effort and obviously collaboration with private enterprise, so that we have in St. James Central at Hoyts Village a functioning community center, and I'm grateful that your ministry treats it as such. But the truth of the matter is that obviously that is a makeshift and a fallback position because we could not get the resource. And there has been no equity in getting the resource. And I do not know that at Fitz Village I should be thrust into a situation of replicating that for pavilion purposes, because pavilions build all around Barbados. So, but there seems to be no balm in Gilead, or should I say there's no balm in Fitz Village. And I do not know how for 24 years you all can expect it to be reasonable for me, now going on to be a 6th-term member of Parliament, to be able to have to continue to confront people who will legitimately point a finger at every single parish around Barbados, if not almost every other district in Barbados, and say, but they have. It is unfair. And I simply ask, what do we have to do?
Senior Minister, I feel your pain. And the truth is that I believe that where there's a need, that we should fix it. We have offered some solutions in terms of, like I said, the container, but I will ask the Director of the National Sports Council to speak to your plight.
Neil Murrell, Director, National Sports Council. I've heard you, member for St. James Central, and we have done collaborative work over the years. During this upcoming financial year, there have been others, namely those at Plum Grove, College Savannah, Lamins, and Meadow Road, where we will be focusing in terms of working with pavilions and constructing pavilions. We will consider, of course, during the following financial year, because of the resources that we've been given, to look at the idea of having the pavilion at Fitz Village over the next financial year. But in this financial year, we will work with you in terms of other smaller projects, as we have been at Bagatelle, and there are other facilities that are going to go into your constituency. But we will look to have that facility put forward in the following financial year. Thank you.
Well, I am grateful that, and I want to be very honest, I am grateful that the Sports Council has worked with me on a number of other small projects. And in the course of the last election, I highlighted the fact that, I am happy that every ground in the constituency has lights, for example. But I do believe that this is an issue where there has to be some equity. And I understand that very often political decisions are taken. But I do think that the Sports Council has a duty above and beyond just parties and politics, or due respect, Minister, choices of ministers, which you are entitled to have. But the overarching concern must be that you cannot have 2.5 decades pass. And obviously, I'm only talking about since I have been the Member of Parliament. Fitz Village wasn't created in 2003 when I entered this place. So from time immemorial, as far back as the memory of man does run, there have been pavilions being created about Barbados. So for there to be no effort whatsoever for all of that time it is baffling and bedeviling. And I genuinely feel that this is something that we have to do better about, or better on, because there will always be a level of what's the word I'm looking for? There'll be a lack of equity and even-handedness. And we all know that it is an important amenity for the sporting efforts in any community. So I will not trouble you further, Minister. I thank you very much for your response and that of the head of the Sports Council.
Rest assured, Senior Minister, that your concerns will be dealt with.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. He thinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:30 p.m.
The question is that this honourable chairman will be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.